Hi, I'm Allison Campbell, and I am here with Vivian and Kristin and Chris, and we're here to talk about STEM ambassadors. So, Chris, and can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I've been at the lab for about 7 years, and most of my focus is on spatial omics, so basically doing a lot of the science we're going to talk about as part of the STEM Ambassadors program, but doing it in a spatial manner.
Great. How about you?
I've been at the lab for about over 10 years now, and my specialty as a bioanalytical chemist is multi-omics. So proteomics, metabolomics, lipidomics, trying to understand complex biological systems.
Excellent. Vivian?
I've been at the lab for about 2.5 years, and I'm an organic chemist by training, so I make chemical probes, so molecules that we can use to study biological processes.
Awesome. So you are all STEM ambassadors, which is a program here at PNNL meant to sort of do outreach around science, technology, engineering, and math, which is what STEM stands for. Tell me a little bit about how you got engaged in the program. We'll pick on you first.
Absolutely. So I think it's really an interesting thing to go out into the community and explain what national labs do. One thing we do is we look at environmental systems, and environmental systems do things quite well, and we try to understand how they do those things. One example that I have my poster back here is the leaf cutter ant. Mm-hmm. It actually takes leaves back to its garden. It doesn't eat the leaves. Instead, what it does is it grows a fungus on it. So it's almost like farmer ants. They don't eat the leaves, they grow this fungus, and then that's what they use as their food source. Now, why would DOE care about this? The reason is that lignocellulose degradation is really important for biofuels. So if we can understand how this complex environmental system digests these leaves into small little precursor sugars, then we can use that knowledge for biofuels and biofuel development.
Excellent. How about you? What's your STEM project?
Yeah, ours, there's a couple of us working on this one, Paul Pyhowski and Heather Brewer, and what we're trying to show is how we can understand how the small scale processes that happen on the metabolite proteomic scale have large scale consequences. So our poster is basically looking at, we can take things from a very large view and then break it down into the small molecular occurrences that are happening. And we talk about the sort of technology that allows us to actually measure these processes, from doing the chromatography to really characterizing the different types of building blocks and the building material plants or microbe interactions are using to interact with one another. Yep. To actually then, after we know all the building material and building blocks, doing spatial probing, whether at the single cell level or through these imaging modalities, and trying to figure out how everything's put together, and that gives us an idea of what processes might be important for regulating the symbiosis of fungus with a plant or fungus and a bacteria, etc.
Great. Vivian?
Yeah, so I'm interested in understanding plant, microbe, and soil interactions. And one of the ways that we think that we can study this is by using a technique called activity-based protein profiling. So we have probes that will react with specific enzymes that are present in our biological system. They could be produced by the plant, they could be produced by microbes in the soil, or microbes interacting with the plants. And this is a way to look at those enzymes, even if we don't know their structure. If we know they have a certain kind of function, our probes will bind to them and give us a signal that we can detect. So that's a way to probe these very complex systems that are generally difficult to look at because they're opaque. They have a lot of different components.
Great. So this program's a year or two old. How did you learn about it, and how did you get engaged in it?
Well, I'd seen a previous poster from last year, and then, quite frankly, there was an opportunity to expand it, and they would ask me if I wanted to be part of it, and I was very willing enough for doing it, because I like this idea of being a STEM ambassador and going out in the community and basically communicating the science that we do here. Like recently we just had the Tri-Cities Regional Chamber of Commerce and we got to show basically the different types of work that's being done here, and how this, relates to stuff that's happening in the community, business-wise, especially when it comes to agricultural stuff. So, yeah.
That's great. And how did you hear about it?
I heard about it from other scientists that were participating and really said how much joy they
got
had
a lot
going
out of
out
it.
into the community.
Yeah, and you?
I just heard about it through, I guess, the training. I had the opportunity to participate and was asked if I was interested in the work.
So if people are interested, they contact the lab representative, and then there's some training that you guys go through. And what's involved in the training?
It's really how to speak to the community.
Okay.
Being scientists, we get so used to our own lingo,
Yeah,
our
technical
own
talk.
our own technical talk. So really, the training is to be able to go out and speak to either it be program officers, high school children, or also younger kids, and be able to take all those different age groups.
And is this strictly volunteer, or do you get some support, a combination thereof?
A combination.
A combination, so you get to the training, sort of the lab help pays for, and then when you go out in the community, you volunteer some hours, and they cover some hours as well. Is that the way it works?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where have you been? Who have you talked to?
So Kristin and I went to Toledo, Ohio, for a, I think it was called Ohio Lab Day.
Yeah, National Lab
Yeah,
Day.
National
One of
Lab
those
Day.
regional lab days, yeah, in Ohio,
And so we had an opportunity to talk to high school students who were coming from a STEM high school in the area. And they were people who were interested in maybe pursuing STEM as careers in the future. So it was an opportunity to see what the national labs are working on, and what it's like to be a scientist.
And you mentioned the chamber. Any other places?
No, it just started this, I guess, quote unquote, new season of
New season. Yeah. And how about you?
What I thought was interesting for the National Lab Day one, talking to the high school kids, and really they want to know what getting a PhD entailed, what our daily activities were we in lab all day,
The life
what
of a scientist.
life of a scientist, and it was interesting to get their perspective on what they should choose for undergrad, and then what grad school would be like for them.
So there's a community of STEM ambassadors here at the laboratory. Do you guys get together as a community and share ideas or lessons learned or experiences that when you've been out in these things? Or is there a way for you to network amongst yourselves? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's communication. A lot of it is at these events. We talk amongst each other. When the training started, a lot of the people that started the inaugural push for this, like, they had a lot of lessons learned, and they told us about things. One of the things that comes from the training is, going back to Kristin's point about engaging with them, is like how to engaging with the community is how to make sure that they really get excited is you ask them a challenging question, right? And make them think about, like, how would you even go about addressing this, letting them touch your props and whatever you have, and letting them actually have some hands-on. And that really increases the engagement of the people that are coming to look at your posters and so forth.
You think you guys have won any kids over?
I
into
think
the
there
STEM
was
fields?
a few.
You think there's a few?
I think so.
Yeah.
And showing that scientists don't just have lab coats on and spend all day in front of an instrument. We are an interactive group, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this is an incredible program, and I think that not just in terms of a STEM pipeline, but like you said with the chamber, I think demystifying what we do here at the lab so that people see that the science that we do, even though we might fall into technical talk of omics and all of this, has relevance to their everyday lives, and the challenges we're taking, like a drought-tolerant plant, for example, is important. So, well, thank you guys very much, not just for the work you do at the laboratory, but taking it out into the community and volunteering your time to being a STEM ambassador, because I think it sounds very rewarding, and it's incredibly important. So thanks.
Thank you.